designed to support investment in sustainable energy and transport systems, which seeks to address the development priorities of the Global South, which Ghana is a part of. So in Ghana, CCG operates through 5 special interest groups, which are focused on the following areas. We have the first group, which is hosting today's webinar, the Inclusive Net Zero Emission Future. This group seeks to address policies and strategies for Ghana to achieve a net zero carbon emission future. The second group is the New Energy Vehicles and Sustainable Transport Group. This group seeks to explore sustainable mobility solutions, including electric vehicles and efficient transport infrastructure. We have a Clean Cooking, which promotes clean cooking. We have Green Hydrogen, which investigates hydrogen production and utilization as a sustainable energy source for Ghana. And then lastly, we have the Financing the Energy Transition Group, which seeks to develop innovative financial models to support the energy transition. So these SIGs serves as platform for collaboration, bringing together researchers, policymakers, industry leaders, and other stakeholders to address Ghana's unique energy and transport challenges. So if you are here and you are passionate about sustainable energy and transport, or have expertise in any of the areas I've mentioned, kindly sign up by filling the registration form, which I'm going to drop in the chat box later today. My name is Dr. Akwesi Edupoku. I am the SIG coordinator for the Ghana CCG network. I'm going to wait for an extra minute for other members to join so that we can kickstart the main agenda for today's webinar. Thank you. All right, so I'll continue to the main segment of today's webinar. Today, we are honored to have an incredible lineup of speakers who will share their insights and expertise on carbon capture, utilization and storage, and its role in Ghana's energy transition. So our first speaker is Dr. Adams Sokama-Neuyam, who is a senior lecturer and the head of the Department of Petroleum Engineering at the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, Kumasi here. He is also the founder and principal investigator of the Net Zero Carbon Emission Laboratory on campus, where he spearheads cutting-edge research in net zero operations and decarbonization solutions. With a proven track record in research, teaching, and leadership, his current research interests include carbon capture, utilization and storage, oil field methane management, industrial and institutional carbon intensity management, geological hydrogen storage, and sustainable oil field materials development. Prior to his current role, Dr. Sokama-Neuyam served as an assistant professor in natural gas engineering at the Department of Stavanger in Norway, where he collaborates with several high-profile researchers worldwide, and his research findings have been widely published in reputable peer-reviewed journals, reflecting his strong expertise and contributions to the field. Dr. Yen holds a PhD and Master of Science in Petroleum Engineering from the University of Stavanger in Norway, and holds a Bachelor of Science in Petroleum Engineering from our prestigious university, KNUST. Our second speaker for today's webinar is Dr. Yussif Sulemana, who is an accomplished international petroleum consultant and an expert strategist with over 2 decades of experience in the energy sector, encompassing petroleum power and alternative energy. He is the CEO of Eureka Energy Solutions, an energy strategy think tank dedicated to innovative solutions in the industry. Currently, Dr. Sulemana serves as a senior oil production operations specialist with Petroleum Development Oman in the Gulf. where he specializes in oil production, refinery process optimization, and systematic troubleshooting. His expertise has made him a prominent voice in energy management and strategic planning on both local and global platforms. Dr. Sulemana holds a doctorate in business administration with a concentration in energy management from the United States and an MSc in international management in oil and gas from the United Kingdom, and a Bachelor of Science in Chemical Engineering, again from our prestigious university, KUST in Ghana. With a deep passion for STEM, he actively mentors professionals in the field, fostering talent and innovation. Dr. Sulemana's insights into the energy landscape have made him a sought-after subject matter expert, frequently featured in Ghana's leading media outlets for his authoritative analysis and perspectives on energy-related issues. And our last distinguished speaker, who I've had the pleasure to meet in person, is Dr. Yussif Essandoh-Yeddu. Dr. Yussif Essandoh-Yeddu is a distinguished energy systems expert with over 30 years of experience spanning power, renewable energy, nuclear, and fossil fuels. Currently an adjunct professor at the University of Cape Coast and a consultant on climate change and energy. His work has focused on strategic energy planning, energy access, and greenhouse gas mitigation strategies. As the former Director of Strategic Planning and Policy at Ghana's Energy Commission, he spearheaded key initiatives, including Ghana's first Strategic National Energy Plan, SNEP, solar power programs, and the National Infrastructure Plan. Dr. Essandoh-Yeddu's expertise in carbon capture, utilization, and storage has positioned him as a leading figure in international climate negotiations, advocating for CCUS inclusion as a key mitigation strategy under the UNFCCC. In addition to his extensive contributions to policy and strategies, Dr. Essandoh-Yeddu has been actively engaged in academic and technical consultancies for organizations such as UNEP, UNFCCC, and Climate Compatible Growth. He has served as a lead author and review editor for multiple IPCC assessment reports and has collaborated with global institutions on energy and climate initiatives. With a PhD in climate change and geosciences and affiliations with leading professional bodies, Dr. Essandoh-Yeddu has also held visiting scholar roles worldwide, enriching academic and policy circles with his expertise in sustainable energy solutions. His efforts have been recognized internationally, including an honor from the International Solar Energy Society as an industry pioneer. Now, at this point, I would ask all members present online to kindly turn on their cameras so that we can take a group photograph, an online photograph, before we start the main webinar. Okay. Just a moment. Yeah. So in 3, 2, 1, please smile. Yeah. Thank you so much. Please turn off your cameras. Thank you. All right. Dr. Yen, please, over to you now.
Good afternoon. And Kwesi, thank you very much for the gracious introduction. It is an honor to be part of this program. First of all, to be part of CCG and also to have the privilege to speak on this important topic. I think after the CCG workshop, I held a short discussion with Dr. Essandoh, and we realized that the two of us had interest in CCS. So initially we planned to organize workshop for students. And Dr. Sulemana has been a long-time friend whom I admire so much for his understanding of global energy issues. So recently we had a discussion on how we could organize some programs for students, and we realized that we shared some interest. So I'm glad to be on the same program with these two distinguished speakers who are also my personal friends. My job today is quite very simple. I'm going to provide an introductory remark that will open the topic up, and we are hoping that both speakers and the audience will engage in an open discussion that will lead to learning and also help us to find solutions that can be used by our country. So I'll start with a brief introductory remark, and I hope I can share my screen. All right. Oh, climate change is no longer something that we just talk about. It's a reality. It's one of the greatest health and security challenge that the world has ever seen. Now, greenhouse gas emission is the major challenge that is causing climate change. Now, since the signing of the Paris Agreement, the whole world has come together, and we have a common goal, which is to reduce global warming to about 1.5 degrees C. And before we can do that, we have to reduce greenhouse gas emissions significantly. Now, today, the remaining carbon budget is about 250 gigatons of CO2. It simply means that that is the room that we have to emit CO2 before we reach that 1.5 degrees C compared to pre-industrial levels. So that is quite crucial. Now, for us to be able to achieve this 1.5 degrees C by 2050, with just 250 gigatons of CO2 equivalent as our remaining carbon budget, the math shows that we have to dispose of about 10 gigatons of CO2 equivalents every year up to 2050. That is a huge task, because for now, we are not doing even half of that. Now, many aspects of the energy system can be decarbonized. Okay, for example, we can decarbonize transportation with hydrogen and electric vehicles. Okay, we can decarbonize electrification with, let's say, solar panels and wind energy. Okay, but there are some aspects of the energy system that are very difficult to decarbonize, and that comes from industry. Okay, if you look at the oil and gas industry, cement manufacture, iron, steel production, refineries, and petrochemical plants, they emit large amounts of greenhouse gases, and they are quite difficult to decarbonize. And also, they've become central to our lives, so we can't do without them. Okay, this form about 30% of global greenhouse gas emissions, this large point source emission. Carbon removal through CCUS, or carbon capture, utilization, and storage, has proven to be a very useful technology in decarbonizing these hard-to-abate industries. Now, CCUS is quite very simple. So you look at these industries that I'm talking about, they emit large amounts of greenhouse gases. We develop technologies to capture the greenhouse gases and separate them, okay, where we have CO2. Then we transport these gas via pipelines mainly, and let's say storage tanks. And we use them for useful products that we use in everyday life. I will show quite a few. But if you have taken soft drinks, such as Coca-Cola and Sprite, you've taken a product that uses CO2, okay? They get this CO2 from point source emissions. So these gases can be used to produce everyday materials that we use. But we can't utilize all the CO2 that we capture. And also, if we want to meet global emission reduction targets, it will require that we capture quite a lot. And if we capture a lot and we are not able to use it, we need to find a way to dispose of what is left. And that is where CCS comes in. Okay, so CCUS, you can split it into two. You have CCU, carbon capture and utilization, where you capture the gas and then you use it to produce products. Then you have CCS, carbon capture and storage, where the remaining gas that cannot be utilized to produce any products, you inject it into deep underground rocks and then store it there permanently so that it doesn't come back to the surface, right? This gives a little bit of detail. So you have the CO2 coming out, you capture it, then you recover the CO2 from the greenhouse gases that you've captured, purify it, liquefy it, and then utilize some to produce products, and the remaining, you store it. So you have CCU and then you have CCS, right? Now, according to the IEA, currently there are about 45 commercial facilities that are capturing and storing CO2, okay? And combined, the total 45 commercial facilities all sequester about 50 million metric tons of CO2. That's quite very small compared to our emission reduction target of 10 gigatons of CO2 annually. So McKinsey projects that if we want to attain net zero by 2050, we have to increase these facilities from 45 to about 120. About 120 times more. So 120 times 45, that's quite a lot. Okay, and if we do that, we'll be able to capture and store about 4.2 gigatons of CO2 equivalent per annum. And that will play a significant role. At least it is getting to half of the emission reduction target so that the rest can be taken care of by other technologies. CCS storage facilities. The main ones are CO2 storage in saline aquifers. So these are large rocks in the subsurface that contain just brine or salt water. So CO2, the captured CO2 that we are not able to utilize can be injected into these rocks and permanently stored. And because the rocks contain salt water and CO2 is soluble in water, it mineralizes and becomes carbonate in the long term. So it doesn't stay there as a gas forever, but eventually it becomes a rock in the subsurface and is not able to escape back to the subsurface. So for us to succeed in this, it means we need these large rocks in the subsurface where we can store the CO2. And Africa is blessed with everything, including these rocks. Okay, globally, the practically accessible geologic storage capacity for CO2, that is the volumes that are available for the CO2 storage, is between 8,000 and 55,000 gigatons by volume. Africa is estimated to hold between 1,563 gigatons and 10,986 gigatons. Now, that translates to about 20% of the global CO2 storage potential. Now, if you bring that to compare to, let's say, the United States and Europe, the continent of Africa has about 2 times the estimated storage space available in the USA and about 5 times more than the entire Europe. So we have the storage space available for CO2 if we can develop them for CCS. And there's going to be demand for this because as industrialization becomes part of us, especially in the African continent, we will need these facilities to be able to develop sustainable industries. Now, as part of Ghana's climate commitments, we have indicated in our energy transition plans that we want to deploy CCS by 2040, which is a great plan, right? Because first of all, we need to decarbonize our oil and gas industry. For now, our industries are not producing so much greenhouse gases in terms of what is coming from the subsurface, okay? In terms of the emissions on the surface, that is another topic for another day. But what we are getting from the subsurface has just about 2.8% of CO2 it isn't much to be worried about. But we can't rule out that there will be reservoirs that are going to produce large amounts of CO2. And those reservoirs can only be developed if we have a technology or some plans to take care of the CO2 that is going to be produced with the volumes. Besides, we want to industrialize. We are thinking about Ghana Petroleum Hub that will have refineries, petrochemical plants. We are thinking about refining gold, bauxite, steel for domestic consumption and exports. Of course, we need all these for socioeconomic development. But we also have a plan to attain net zero by 2070. The only way we can achieve these two objectives is if we have a way to take care of the large point source emissions that will come from the industries. And CCUS will help us to achieve that. In terms of the geologic resources, we are blessed. We have large geologic facilities, 4 large basins. They've not been proven as CO2 storage facilities, but that means that at least we have something that we can start with. And if they are proven to be good storage facilities, that could be a huge resource for the country. And they are also strategically located. For example, if you look at the Western Basin or the Tano Cape 3 basin down here, it is located close to the Western region where we are also trying to put up the petroleum hub. Okay, so it is possible for us to capture the emitted gases and actually store them in the subsurface close to these industries. It also means that if we know for sure the facilities that are good for CO2 storage, it can inform stakeholders and policymakers as to where to site industries to help us take care of their greenhouse gases in the near future. Now, the overall goal of this webinar is to explore Ghana's CCS potential, benchmark the readiness of the country to deploy CCUS, and assess job opportunities along the CCUS value chain, and skills gap that must be breached to position the country to benefit fully from CCUS deployment in future. Some of the questions we seek to answer today are: 1, what is the role of CCUS in the global energy transition? Should Ghana include CCUS in its energy transition plans? What is Ghana's CCUS potential in terms of need and available resources? Where is the country right now in its journey towards CCUS implementation? What job opportunities exist within the CCUS value chain? What skills are required to access these job opportunities? How can the country prepare its young people for some of these job opportunities? What is the role of research and technology development in the implementation of CCUS in Ghana and capacity building of the youth? These are the questions that we seek to address, and I am glad we have more than enough expertise to look at each of these questions. And we are also hopeful that our audience will come in and we will have a very insightful and enjoyable discussion this evening. Thank you very much. And from here, we will move to Dr. Sulemana, who is our first speaker. He will come in to address some of these questions, followed by Dr. Essandoh-Yeddu, and then I'll come back to provide a summary, after which we will come to our audience for questions. Akwasi, thank you very much. So I'm coming back to you now.
Thank you so much, Dr. Yen, for the insightful opening remarks. So I'll call on Dr. Sulemana to take over from where you left off.
Thank you very much. Do I need to show my video? Is it okay?
Yes.
And can you hear me well, audience? Kwesi, can you hear me, please?
Yes, it's loud and clear, sir.
Great. Yeah, so thank you very much. It's my greatest pleasure actually to be part of this August interaction. Like Dr. Ian rightly mentioned, we've been talking about this for quite some time now, and then it has just been an opportunity, to interact with the university community, of course, where we came from or where we started our journey from. So I wouldn't put any presentation. I had a last minute glitch with respect to my computer, but I'll share the presentation later with Dr. Yen. But of course, a lot of the visual display and the presentation that Dr. Yen put across has been wonderful, and a lot of it, you know, a lot of it has actually something that I intend to talk about. So just to go straight to the point, I'll just address the questions in the order that were put, especially the importance of CCUS, carbon capture technology, and storage, utilization and storage, to the global energy transition. Has it gotten any relevance? Is it a new technology? What has it become very important at this moment in time? Sometimes the energy transition journey is an interesting one. And it has come to a point where, at a point in time, we lost a lot of trust within the space, where players were taking entrenched positions. We had almost zero collaboration. And I'll give you an example. We had two segments of people, one who are extremely, green, let me put it that way, and they don't want to hear anything about well of hydrocarbon, unfortunately. Whatever well of hydrocarbon will do, they'll call it like greenwashing. They will not buy it. Then we have another one at the extreme end of the chain, who are so much into well of hydrocarbon that they believe climate change is a hoax. They believe climate change is not possible. It's just scaring people. And now, if you look at these two areas, one in the world of hydrocarbon at the extreme ends, and then the other one believing that, we should not invest anything into the world of hydrocarbon. Whatever world of hydrocarbon does, it is seen as greenwashing. And that has actually impacted the penetration of CCUS globally, as a matter of fact. To the extent that, if you notice, just after COVID, those on the other side, those who are so entrenched with respect to green energy movement, they were not trying to give any allowance with respect to even all other things that those within the world of hydrocarbon, they wanted to just put programs in place, to be able to stay still relevant within the industry. And so if you notice after COVID, after 2020, about 2020, 2021, when COVID was seeding off, there was a spirited campaign globally, to demonize investment into the world of hydrocarbon. And it took a whole lot of toll within the investment into the world of hydrocarbon. If you notice that time, with actually some activists, taking world of hydrocarbon players, the big players. I remember Shell, they were taken to court, and they actually won, the green activists actually won the case. That they didn't believe that Shell, whatever the Shell as a company was put in place, was credible enough, to be able to mitigate the climate change. Then the other side, like I mentioned, some don't even believe that climate change do exist. Now we have to have a middle ground. And what is the middle ground? Now, we have to be realistic. If you sit down and say climate change doesn't exist, then you are living in a different world. If you come from the other part of the world where probably, even in Ghana, I was told in recent times within the northern sector, we had drastic change in the weather, and a lot of people, cultivations, crops didn't grow. If you go to other areas, those who live within the sea, they are clearly noticing rise in sea levels. These are signs and symptoms of climate change fallout. So you can't say climate change doesn't exist. And it cannot be business as usual. On the other hand, in the global space, like I mentioned, we seem to boil so much on the effects of climate change, and we don't invest or go further to invest into technologies that can bring the two together, or that we can meet a midway. And that is where it's not that CCUS is a new technology. It's not been a new technology. It was there. We had used a lot of carbon capture techniques in the refinery, where we champion zero flaring. in the upstream where I operate now, we have a lot of CCUS, not in the scale and not standardized the way we want it to be. Like Dr. Yen mentioned, some of those ones. Now, so if you notice, renewable energy or the green energy movement is still haven't gotten answers to the global energy security. And when I talk about global energy security, we're talking about three things, or three or four things: energy availability, energy dependability, energy affordability, and the quality of energy. If today or tomorrow or the next 1 year, green energy, solely green energy will have access to these ones, people will automatically transition. But as we speak now, as we have it now, the well of hydrocarbon is still key to the global energy security. So to have a technology that can satisfy both ends in a way that we can continue to invest into the well of hydrocarbon, however metered it is, but we can mitigate how much we release into the atmosphere. That is the whole game. So what some of the world of hydrocarbon people were not comfortable, they were saying that, okay, if global, GHG, greenhouse gas is your problem, we have technology to be able to capture that. Why are you still not comfortable with that? So that has been what was existing within what has been existing within the global energy space. So with this one, if you notice this one, and then like Dr. Yen mentioned, if you look at the quantum, the amount of CO2 that we need to capture to stay on course to meeting the net zero, the current technology is still not enough to mitigate that. Okay, so to be able to stay on course and achieving net zero while still have access to global energy security as an energy affordability and energy poverty, especially on our part of the continent, CCU has become very critical and central to energy transition. And I've always argued that net zero is simply going to be very difficult to achieve when we don't add technologies like CCUS. I said this very long time ago, and now the chicken has come home to roost. If you notice in recent times, even most of the big players, BP, Shell, if you follow global trends, you will definitely notice that they are rolling back the drastic, net zero targets that they had. And what does that mean? It means that these are the players that we needed to collaborate with. If you don't collaborate, if it's not through collaboration between the two parties, the green energy movement and then the world of hydrocarbon, if we don't have that nice collaboration and we go through it with a bit of antagonism, then we are going to lose the game. And so if you notice in recent times, the pullback of some of these ones, because profitability hasn't been part of green energy. But that doesn't mean that green energy cannot be profitable. So what I will urge, there is a huge opportunity in green energy movement. There is a huge opportunity in the world of green. We need to just build up the technology that is required to have answers to global energy security as an energy affordability, energy dependability, and energy availability, and the quality of energy. And if that is done, automatically we're going to have smooth and bumpless transition. And I think now it is taking shape to the extent that in my part, Dr. Yen mentioned about how utilization, most of this CO2 utilization is done. In our part, apart from having what we call recoverable measures, where carbon or methane recoverable measures, where we don't release any methane or any C1, C2 into the atmosphere. We have stated seriously under development. Far advanced. To be able to develop what we call EOR using CO2, and that's a huge area in a way. We currently use steam to achieve our COR. Now plans or studies are underway to be able to use CO2 to achieve what we call EOR target, that is enhanced oil recovery target. And if that is done, that creates a lot of room, for the amount of CO2 that can be released. And all this, it is within the ambit of the fact that renewable energy, CCUS is a way to go. And if you actually embark on that, and it's not going to take a job, it's either going to create jobs. With CCUS, what will happen is that you are not stopping the main jobs within the world of hydrocarbon, but you are creating another vehicle that will create different jobs altogether within the same line whilst achieving your net zero target. And if we do that with CCUS, I think, and with much more collaboration within the global energy space, yes, indeed, we'll be on our way to achieving the net zero, or the net zero will be within reach. And this is the global perspective of it. And Ghana is not single out. All this that I've mentioned, Ghana need to take steps to be able to, to stay relevant within the global energy space. So I believe my time is virtually ending. So I will end here. If there are other follow-up questions, especially with respect to Ghana peculiar situation, we will be able to address that. Thank you very much for giving the opportunity to interact with this August meeting. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sulemana. Indeed, net zero is going to be very difficult to achieve in Ghana. Looking at the quantum of emissions we need to offset in the world of hydrocarbons, unless we prioritize CCUS technologies. So on that note, we are going to invite our next speaker, Dr. Yussif Essandoh-Yeddu, to take over. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Please, do you hear my voice?
Loud and clear, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. Fine. Please, you can share my slides, right? Yes, so this is not. So next, please. Okay, now look at our continent. Like previous presenters mentioned, we have almost everything: diamond, gold, lithium, copper, and we also have, when it comes to agri, a lot. Do you see? And then you have also the timber, rubber. What is lacking in Africa? That we have so rich, but in terms of development, very poor, the poorest in the world. Shame to us, perhaps. We have the energy resource, or the resources to develop these rich, I would say, mineral resources, agricultural resources that we have. Yes. Sorry. Next, please. Yes. The continent is about 1.4 billion in terms of population, accounting for 17% of world population, of which over 80% really are in sub-Saharan Africa. That's below the Maghreb region. About 60 to 70% of us live in rural and remote areas without access to modern energy like electricity or gas. Gas for cooking, I mean. We have them averaging, we are lower level of economic development. As at 2022, about 600 million of us still do not have access to electricity, and about 9 million still lack access to clean cooking fuels like gas. Interestingly, I remember I visited in the 10 years ago, and I remember 10 years ago, I was visiting lecturer to University of Ibadan. So strangely, with all the resources, the oil and gas resources in Nigeria, they were largely not using gas. Okay. So even Ghana, we are using it for cooking. They were surprised. I hope by now things have changed. To except for harmful, almost all the African countries are classified at least developed or low-income groups or economies. Next slide, please. Next slide. Yes, so look at Africa. Most of us, do you see, are 50% or less when it comes to electricity coverage. So except for the Northern Africa countries, that the Maghreb region, and the West Africa, Ghana, Senegal, and then the South Africa, almost most of the countries have less than 50% of electricity coverage. You see, and interestingly, the resources are here on the continent. Yes, next slide, please. Yes, and interestingly, low energy usage, you have your energy, you don't use it to develop your economy, then you are underdeveloped. Because those who remember your basic science, the physics, what creating wealth or growth, do you see? Yes, it's ability to use energy. That they are nothing. Look at those countries we are talking about. Next slide, please. Yes, most African countries, look at the Human Development Index. We are below 0.600. Do you see? And the developing world, the average, the world, look at where the world is. The OECD countries, and then the Americans. The South Asia, look at even South Asia. Do you see? But look Africa, where we are on the average, very low, below it, 0.5. Next slide, please. Yeah. So in terms of share of commercial energy use, Africa, we are between 750 to 800 million kilotons of oil equivalent. In terms of shares, we have the oil consumption in North Africa between 30 to 31%, South Africa 20%, the rest just 50%. For the rest in sub-Saharan Africa, just 50% that we are using now all energy resources. When it comes to natural gas, well, North Africa is using most of their resource, 73%. And when it comes to coal, South Africa about 80%. And then nuclear, only South Africa has it. And when it comes to urban rural of public or grid electricity, we are largely North Africa that is largely connected in terms of grid. Then followed by South Africa and Ghana. And the rest of Africa is below 20 to 60%. Next slide, please. Yes. This population that we're talking about, 1.4 billion, is expected to double by 2050, accounting to that is 25 to 26% of world population from the 17% that we have now. And then most of us will move to urban areas like we are having in Ghana now, the situation. You see, of course, and so this time, less than 50% remain in rural and remote areas. So this profound demographic changes will drive the content economic growth and infrastructure development. So we need energy. The energy demand, therefore, is going to rise from the current about 650 to 800 to about 1.3 gigawatt or the million, 1,300 million kilotons of oil equivalent by 2030. Do you see? That's the end of the SDGs and the Paris Agreement. That's about 60% rise. You see? So currently, and that also means the greenhouse gas emissions of about one gigaton billion, so yeah, now will double or will triple to that time. So look at Africa, the resources we have. We have all the fossil fuels, we have the wind, we have the hydro and the solar. And I keep telling people is that it's not that we do away with the fossil fuels. We're going to have an energy mix, whether we like it or not. People think the fossil fuel, it will never vanish. It's going to be there. The challenge is the whole thing. There may be the intense of penetration is going to lower, but still going to have it. And what we need to have is sustainable energy, what do you call it, development. Next, please. Yes. Look at Africa until the 73 crisis where we have the Israeli-Arab conflict where it affected the global supply of oil. Just Nigeria, Angola, and I think Cameroon or something like that, one just have the oil. But since then, 45 years later, look at where we are. Because yes, look at where Ghana is now included. Because that time, before around 1973, the average oil price was about $3 to $5 per ton. And now it's what? Well, so when it got to $20 per ton, then things change. So per barrel, things change. Yes. So Ghana once described no oil, once described as no oil country. Now we also have oil. The interesting thing about all the development is that it's the geologic share and similarities between Brazil and Western Africa. Then let's go to the previous map. The previous map, please. The previous slide. Yes, you see, most of the discoveries have been really in Western Africa. You see, now we have Ghana, we have now going to Senegal and all that. So now next slide. Next slide. Yes. So that's what is happening. So yes, we're fine. So when we really Essandoh-Yeddu discovered huge, and Brazil said the huge oil deposits in the what we call the pre-salt level. That's a geological feature about 7 kilometers down. You see, the average seawater, the ocean is about 2,000 kilometers. So from there you go further about 5,000 more to hit it. You see, so they decided to move to Africa. And so that's why all of these companies, Mobil, and they started rushing to West Africa. But unfortunately, for Ghana, we just got around next slide, please. Next slide. Yes, unfortunately for Ghana, we just between 5 to 15 TCF. Ghana around now is about 6 trillion cubic feet of gas discovered so far. But into Nigeria, what do you call it, Senegal, we're talking about 40, 50 TCF. And I keep telling colleagues, particularly one of the Energy Commission, that we have to really look at the long term and the visionary role. The West African gas pipeline, we should allow it to be extended to Senegal. By this time, we'll be pumping their gas in there so that if Nigeria is not coming, at least we get also from Senegal. But we didn't do that. It just ended in Ghana here, and we are paying all the liabilities on this. That's why the gas from Nigeria to the West Africa is too expensive relatively. Do you see? Yes. So Western Africa, see what's happening there. We have Nigeria. They have the largest, and then we have the Angola. Sorry, Senegal, and then also Angola, and then Ghana to Ivory Coast, not much, but we are hoping. And that's why no wonder later on, Mobil and others left the country and now moved to Senegal and others. So Ghanaians, let's keep praying. Then when you come to the eastern side, they also discover huge gas reserves in Tanzania. You have Tanzania and then Mozambique. BC, of course, as for Northern Africa, they were already exporting the gas long ago and all that. Next slide, please. Yeah. So, in fact, even though when it comes to oil and gas, we always and then coal and we think it's just for energy purposes. No, the petrochemicals. Do you see? Some of the pharmaceuticals that we use, the chair you as the cushion in it, the plastics, the fertilizers, industrial chemicals, and all that. Even the electricals we are talking about, yes. And all the parts and all those things, yes, the home appliance refrigeration, all the coolers, all coming from petrochemicals. Africans, we are just interested in just what they call the energy side. No. Do you see the high job creation sector is the petrochemicals? The paint used in painting our homes and others, all coming from there. So let's open our eyes, please. Next slide. Yes. So you have the LPG, those ones we know already, the LPG and all those systems that we are getting. Next slide, please. Yeah. So why the natural gas? Because it's accepted as the cleanest fossil fuel because the least greenhouse gas emitter. Do you see? Yes. And then and for them, I can do so many things, and they have become the transition fuel to net zero targets. Next slide, please. Yeah. So when it comes to CO2 emission too, Africa, look at where we are, very little. But so why are we have to worry so much that we should stop and like Sulemana said, people trying to really bully us, excuse me to say for using that word. Do you see that we shouldn't use, we move away from all anything in connection with the carbon? Next slide, please. Yeah, and look at all these countries. Look for Africa, just accounting for about 3% of the global emissions. Next slide. Yeah, so luckily, the Paris Agreement make room for us. They can still use it, do you see? But then they accepted that it will take longer for developing countries, do you see, to reach the target. And for that matter, we also need to development. We have to develop. So if you could do all these things in accordance with the development agenda, you see, and then beside renewables, we're also looking at other carbon capture technologies and other abating technologies, afforestation and all that. So that's how we are considering all that. And then the key thing that guide all this, that's what they are to be implemented to reflect equity and the principle of common but differentiated responsibilities and different capabilities in the light of different national circumstances. Next slide. Yeah. So when we come to non-African countries considering CCUS, we have the Maghreb region largely, as we have the Morocco, Egypt, and then Africa here is Ghana, Senegal, and Nigeria that have started showing some interest. But South Africa, in the South Africa, we have South Africa. But when it comes to the exploration stage, we have Ghana now, we're looking at all the, but the development stage, we have Egypt, Morocco, and South Africa have started far developing their fields, the particular South Africa and all that, yes. So very soon they will do all that. So next we move to Ghana next. Yeah, so we know Ghana already. I brought this because we also have international audience in the it's also in the webinar. Next slide. Yeah. So we too, here's our background. We are now at lower middle level income. We wish to get to what? Become a high income country by 2057. You see, according to the NDPC, what we call the long-term development we have for the country. And then for the medium term, that's up to 2030, we are thinking of achieving upper middle income status. By 2030, that time, at least that's also the end year for the Paris Agreement and the SDGs. You see, but the population now from about 31 million is supposed to get into reach or 37 to 40 million. You see, and then the projected growth in the economy, in the population and the economy, really, it means the energy requirement or what do you call it? Now we move to about 5,000 kilowatt hour by 2030. Next slide. Yes. Then, in terms of our population, economic growth, and all those things, we know that also is going to increase our greenhouse gas emissions. That from about 42 million tons now, equivalent to about that's at the time of the Paris Agreement, to about 74 to 80 million tons carbon dioxide equivalent by 2030 that time. You see, and so what we are saying, Ghana, we are saying that we can do on our own, we can do something, we can decrease the greenhouse gas emission by 50%. Yes, but then we also we also need international support to help us to also to cover about the 30% of the reduction. And why energy? Because in Ghana here, because energy accounted for about 47% of the national greenhouse gas emissions as at 2019. That's the publication of the 2021 National Greenhouse Gas Report. Next slide. Yeah, so at least Dr. Yen have really taken us through all that, our geological fields and all the exploration taking place and all that. Fine. Next slide. Yes, these are the offshore ones. Yeah. Next slide, please. Yeah. So, under our Ghana Energy Transition Investment Plan, that's 2022 to 2060, we've considered, we're looking at, even though you mentioned original net zero to by 2017. Now you say net zero by 2060. You see, besides renewables, also looking at decarbonizing the industrial heating process, like cement, steel, and the CCUS technology, and also looking at other technology, or they call CCS technologies. Next slide, please. Yeah. So these are the potential areas for cooperation and all those things that we have. The onshore, we can look at it for the CCS applications, the shell, the soil pump field, and all those kind. That is both the onshore and the offshore. Next slide. Yeah, so please let me go take us through, and then after that you can cut me off. The likely opportunities, if you go by all this, you see, will be for better carbon trade under the new carbon market mechanism being negotiated under the Paris Agreement. Also here, and also we need to help us to develop legislations and long-term monitoring programs for the long-term jobs and those in the legal fraternity. Yeah, and then the also opportunity for knowledge transfer. This is between industry and academia. This time formerly I've been just academia, industry. Now you have to link them too. Yes, and this way between member countries. And that will provide opportunity for knowledge gaining in carbon fluid mechanics, deep subsea geological mapping technologies, and the CCUS technologies, and the nature-based CCUS solutions also, like afforestation, ocean capture, and others. Then also enhanced oil recovery, like Yen mentioned, we say that we have to take advantage of. There also circular economy principles, like really recycling of produce. We've been on campus, interestingly, I see that we are not practicing this. If you happen to opportunity with some countries, university abroad, all these things are being practiced in the universities. So I think it's opportunity for the academia to really start to introduce these things so that the students will learn from the start. Yeah. So and also what you call the job creation opportunities. They also have to elaborate, and then the country will see the opportunities that we need to take advantage of. Next slide. Yeah, then the way forward, need for knowledge sharing through regular stakeholder consultations and engagement. We need to bring all the stakeholders for both industry and academia to know what it is. This is because most of them don't understand, like they talk against it and all that. You see, it create the awareness also to from both government to the public. You see, and then also to introduce this, like what we are doing now, introduce the CCS in educational systems and the curricular areas, so that people really get it properly, right? And understand and appreciate it, the importance of it. Next slide. Yeah, need to work on public perception and legislation, and which are really currently poor. You see, yes, people don't understand, and then you have a number of people kicking against it. Particularly some of these international anti-CCS NGOs, they don't hear anything about it, and then all those things. You see. But very, very important, Africa, to help us, because to help us to really develop our petrochemicals and not just all the time being blind and then looking at our resource, the fossil fuel resource, just for the energy side. Where we have more opportunities also in the petrochemical side. Yes. Next slide. Yeah, so that's the end of it, and thank you very much. Next. Yeah, thank you. Yes, so we are waiting for questions and contributions. Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you so much, Doc. Dr. Yen, I think we are behind schedule now, so kindly take over.
All right. Thank you very much, Akwasi. I'll just go back to the questions. Since we are behind time, I don't want to go into the summary as previously planned. I will just put up the questions, and then if we can look at them and address them, especially if our audience will also come in to help us know the questions that have not been addressed and those that they want us to touch on, so that we can have an open forum for discussion. All right, so I'm going to share my screen and just show the questions. All right. So the first question here was, what is the role of CCUS in the global energy transition? I think Dr. Sulemana touched on that, and it has been adequately addressed. But if our audience want us to look at them, that would be great. Akwasi, you can also look at the questions from the audience and help us to know what will be pressing questions for them so that we can respond to them. Then the second question was, should Ghana include CCUS in its energy transition plans? I think I addressed this partly, and Dr. Essandoh has also addressed part of it. But the basics is that, first of all, there are challenges with CCUS. It is expensive. It's an expensive technology, and currently, without investment, it's going to be difficult for you to implement it. So that is the first challenge. But the second challenge is that we have the resources, but we have not assessed them to find out if they are actually feasible or not. I showed the map that we have geological basins that could have formations where CO2 can be stored, but they have not been properly assessed yet. So that is the place we need to look at. Then finally, we don't also know if we really need all these geological resources, because you have to do source to sink matching. It means we have to look at the sources of greenhouse gas emissions in the country and match it to the sink where we are going to store to see if it is a technology we should invest in, because you are going to have both capital and operational expenditures that are quite very high. So if you can produce enough CO2 for that purpose to make it profitable, then it may not be something that you want to go in. So these are things we need to look at. But there are opportunities. I said that we have large geological basins. Our country is determined to industrialize. And if we want to industrialize sustainably, we need to find solution to the greenhouse gases that are going to be emitted by these industries. And CCUS is one of the potent ways to go. Then, if we take all these aside, CCUS is going to be a global industry. Okay, the industry is going to grow by 2050. It's going to generate millions of jobs every year. Now, the challenge is that we are at a point where we are not investing in it, even into technology development. And so because of that, our young people are also not learning anything about the technology, although they may be acquiring general skills that can be applied. But we are going to wake up someday and there's an industry that is as big as the oil and gas industry, because CCUS is very similar to the oil and gas industry. And probably our youth might not be ready at that time. And that is something that we need to continue to discuss and find possible ways to tweak curricula, and also find projects that young people can get involved, organize seminars and workshops where young people can get their hands on some problems and think through these problems to see how best we can prepare them for the future. Whilst we, the experts in the area, can also continue to develop our expertise and hone them for national utilization. Then I think the third question is, what is Ghana's CCUS potential in terms of need and available resources? We have addressed the available resources. Dr. Essandoh and myself, we looked at them briefly. But in terms of need, we haven't done a source to sink matching. I haven't seen any document to that effect. We need to do a source to sink matching to see our need, to look at our greenhouse gas emission, especially from point sources, from industries, and to look at our development goals for the next, let's say, 50 years, or maybe 20 years, the industries that are going to be cited, the likely emissions that are going to come from these industries, then we match that to our resources to see if, first of all, we will need CCUS to take care of the emissions that will come in the near future. But, I mean, in terms of...
Doc, I also wanted to say that our coordinator, Professor Joseph Akowa, has his hands raised, so you can also take his question.
All right.
Yes.
Then please.
All right. Prof, please, over to you. Prof. Akowa.
Yes, Akwesi, thank you very much.
Okay.
And thank you, the speakers, for taking us through this very important topic. I just have a quick question. Most often, as technical people, we always try to highlight the potential and to make a case for people to know that indeed these technologies or these areas are critical for our country development. Sometimes we fail to highlight, I think, as Yen had mentioned, where we've not put in so much investment. But sometimes some people may ask, how do indeed, if it is not even the country and we want people to come and invest in these areas, where is a cost benefit analysis? For example, what is the cost for the capture in terms of the CCUS vis-a-vis the benefit thereof in terms of when you should invest into these areas? I know you've touched on the job opportunities and the potential for, creating a lot of jobs and then developing a lot of skills. But I don't know if any of you could just briefly touch base on, some of these cost benefits analysis so as to be able to highlight the potential in tapping into this CCUS. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prof. Dr. Yen and the other speakers, before you respond to that, there is another question in the chat box from Dr. Jude Bonsu. So you can also note that and answer. So he's asking that how can we reduce the cost of CCUS? Should we locate industrial areas close to CCU storage sites? So you can also take that as well. Thank you.
Okay.
So can I come in quickly?
Sure, Doc.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm using my phone because I'm just on the move. I'm traveling.
Right.
So
go ahead.
Yes. Yeah. So what the questions that I asked, I think they are very crucial. I just give one scenario. When shale technology in the US, started, the break-even was around $70, per barrel. That is how much you need to sink in to be able to take out a barrel of oil from the ground. All right. So they were not competitive, as a matter of fact. Now, as we speak, shale technology is giving, the conventional producers, some of us, we the conventional producers, where our reservoirs are easy ones, you just open it, the oil start gushing out. But even that, they are giving us, a whole lot of competition. To the extent that if you notice when OPEC does production cutting, it doesn't reflect because US is now producing so much. And US is #1 energy producer thanks to shale technology. How do they do it? It is technology. So we should not leave through our hand in despair and say that CCUS is very expensive. It is only technology, research and development that can make the most expensive thing that you think is expensive can become very cheap. And it's possible. So as I speak now, shale technology can now break even. Some of them can now break even around $40 per barrel. Some are $50 per barrel, thanks to technology and the kind of drilling techniques that they employ. So I want to say also that, yes, CCUS may be expensive as we have it now. One of our drivers, one driving force that should let us not abandon some of this is the fact that, the world of hydrocarbon, petroleum products are finite resources. It's a key driver, and they are bound to finish one day. And that's how come I always say that we have to be realists. As much as we want to just make sure that we industrialize, in the sense that, oil and gas, we have the abundant resources. The global community may not wait for us. We set our target to 2070. So it is very crucial. And I actually admire KNUST, your approach. And I've been seeing Dr. Yen and the other crew coming to industry, especially when we have, shows and in terms of deliveries. These are very important. We need to link up industry and then, academia. If we do that and take very good advantage of that, I think we'll be able to make CCUS even also competitive in a way that people can invest. And lastly, probably it will come to a time that the capital market is choked. Let me put it that way. nobody's coming to us to give us just money for you to be able to do that. So that's how come the question that that our good friend asked is very crucial. You need to have the data available. And Dr. Yen mentioned about sync and whatever, that has to be studied. And we have to have a hard proven document that can guarantee that when the time comes and when investors are asking, do you have this abatement technology? Do you have this abatement portfolios that we can invest into it? Because the thing is that somebody may have the money, but because of rules and regulations, they may have it difficult to just give you the money to invest without seeing your credible carbon capture or your credible carbon footprint reduction. So yes, I think research and development, and then, you know, combining with academia, we shouldn't leave that. If we do that, I think breaking technologies can come in, you know, to be able to debottleneck where we're having difficulties in debottlenecking. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. And I'll go to the chat box to read.
I'll address Dr. Bonsu's question.
Okay, that's
You
fine.
know, for CCUS, the highest cost, in fact, close to about 70% of the cost usually comes from the capture of the gas. Okay, that is where most of the investment comes from. Then followed by the geological storage. Okay, so if you are going to, for example, use geological storage, you need to conduct an assessment, you need to drill wells, you need to do monitoring after injection. It takes many years and a lot of workers and several chains of processes. So that costs a lot. Now, if you locate industries close to storage sites, it reduces only the cost of transportation. And the cost of transportation, of course, can be significant depending on the amount of gas you are going to be transporting and where, how far the industry will be from the storage site. So these are the dynamics. I think concentrating on reducing the cost of CO2 capture will reduce the cost significantly. And because we have a lot of raw materials here, in fact, if we had research, intensive research in that area, I believe we can develop quite a few technology that could be helpful in that area as well to help us cut down the cost. Thank you. And then I think a student also asked a question if I could throw some light on some of the skills that young people will need in the industry. Yeah, the CCUS industry is just like the oil and gas industry and the chemical industry. So if you have, let's say, some skills, general skills, you can basically utilize it in the industry. The same way you have any skill, you can work in the oil and gas industry, whether you did economics, engineering, you did chemical engineering, petrochemical engineering, you did business administration, you'll be able to work in there. Now, the challenge is that you need to have an understanding of how the industry works. And the industry, just like every other industry, is segmented. Okay, you have the operation side, where we are discussing today, like the technical side, we are talking about CO2 capture, transportation, and storage. This is basically filled with engineers and technicians. Okay, then you have the business side, where you have the legal people developing legal frameworks. You have the business people, accountants, finance personnel. You have the HR people. They are all in there. And then beyond that, you have policymakers. You have other people along the value chain. You even have, when it comes to the storage side, you have people who are into monitoring. And so if you studied physics and you have an idea about geophysics, you have a job right in there because that is what the monitoring is all about. If you have an idea of how fluids are transported in porous media, you know some fluid mechanics in pipelines. I mean, these are all skills that comes handy. Electrical engineers are highly sought after in this industry. Civil engineers, because we need to look at the effect on groundwater and all that. So this is a huge industry that every skill, especially transferable skill, can be very useful. But you need to have an understanding of how the industry works and know where you are likely going to fit in so that you can prepare yourself to get the requisite skills in that aspect of the industry. Okay, that's where we need to come to. Okay, all right.
Thank you so much, Dr.
Can I come in?
Yes, please, you can. There's a question by someone to you asking about the principle of common in your presentation. So if you can also address that as well.
Common what?
Common, principle of common. You mentioned a principle of common in your presentation. Someone wants more clarity on it.
Oh, maybe a principle of common, maybe I will not heard one. What slide? You can, let me come in. Yes, just to add to what Dr. Sulemana elaborated, it's like solar energy and others coming first. They were highly expensive. I remember joined the Energy Commission as far back as the 89. I was made charge of solar. You see, nobody. I remember when we put the first solar street lights along Legon Road, and people criticizing. You say, but now look, do you see? So it's beginning. You should start with particular. I keep saying the academia, the campuses, the research, like the Brew Hammond Center at KN University that they have done. We study this and then we build that capacity. It will be another, or also a resource training center for other African countries. Even to come here, we can collaborate with institutions outside the country, the developed side, and they become the benefit for both developed and the developed countries and all that. So that should be. So yes, beginning, but nothing started so easy. Like you mentioned, the shale oil. As at 1973, nobody was talking about shale oil. Even touching shale because of the fear of contamination of water and the groundwater bodies. You see, but then what happened when after the Arab-Israeli war, and then the OPEC group were against, particularly the West, for supporting Israel. What happened? Now it rose to about $17 to $17 per barrel. And so, and there was time, a lot of attacks on American assets, the bombing of planes and all those things. They said, no. Then we can no more rely on the Middle East or the OPEC groups. So what happened? They started the shale. That was very, very expensive relatively. But now look, America is the largest producer of oil. So you don't start now and know all that and exploit the opportunities in there, it would remain high. So that's how other countries are leading, are taking the lead, some secretly, some openly. So Ghana, it should also be an opportunity for us to start exploring, using the best first, teaching, because we started teaching solar energy far back in the 80s, you see, and now it's common thing. The physics department, the mechanical engineering, and all those kind of things. Remember, Legon was there, gave all the physics department solar labs and equip their laboratories, include what they call the Brew Hammond Center, all that. So that should be the beginning, and that should be the way forward for now. And then all these opportunities, how to overcome them. You see, a lot of students now, the manpower, that's where it starts from. A lot of ideas, a lot of skills. Now, the assistance of AI, we can do more. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Essandoh. So we take the last set of questions for the webinar today. First is asking why CCUS is not included in Ghana CCG special interest groups. In fact, CCUS is one of the initiatives of the Inclusive Net Zero Emission SIG. So it's highlighted in this group, and you can also sign up to join this group by filling the form that has been posted to the chat box. It's the first message in the chat box. So first you can register. The next question is from Gideon, asking what it would take to assess some of these geological basins, which are potential storage sites for carbon. Is this something universities can take up, or will it require a national agenda? And another question is from Alote, asking, can sustainable catalysts help in reducing the cost of CO2 conversion? He is currently working on a project that involves finding environmental friendly catalysts for CO2 conversion. Does that hold any potential in the industry? So this our last two sets of questions for today's webinar. So speakers, over to you.
Yeah, I'll take the first one, and then if there's no one to take the second one, I'll come in as well. The first one, we have an ongoing project already with GMPC, the Geological Department, Geoscience Department of GMPC. We are working with them to conduct assessment of some of our basins. So we have about 5 postgraduate students who are working on various aspects of this project. The only challenge is that we don't have the required resources to be able to do it more intensively. And so if we had some national support to do this, we can work on it. If you give this to maybe like most of the government institutions do, they could outsource this to maybe a consultant abroad to do it, but they might not be able to do the job the way that we would have done it here, because we have experts in this country who have in-depth understanding of our basins. And so with our CCUS expertise, working with those people, we are able to conduct a more comprehensive assessment. It has to be done with by institutions locally with our students. And by doing so, it helps us both to have an understanding of our basins, and then secondly, to train our students who will work on those projects. So we are building capacity and technology at the same time. So there's an ongoing project here in our department here, together with the Geological Engineering Department. We are working with GMPC to conduct assessment. But the phase in which we are right now is preliminary assessment. We need to go beyond that to comprehensive assessment that will require in-depth modeling and resources.
Thank you so much, Dr. Yen. I guess you indeed answered both questions, so we can wrap unless either Professor Essandoh or Dr. Sulemana has an additional insight to the questions on the floor.
Okay, I think the second one has to do with catalysts. If you are going to convert CO2 to, let's say, hydrogen, you need a catalyst, all right, to reduce the energy that you need to split the CO2, basically. That area is an intensive area of research. I knew a professor back in graduate school who was solely dedicated to this area, and he was working with several postgraduate students. Today, I know a lot of professors who are into that area. So if he has a project in that area, it's a very good project. It definitely can help to reduce the cost involved in CO2 conversion, which is another area along the CCUS value chain. Because if you are going to utilize CO2, one of the ways you utilize it is to convert it to useful products that are less environmentally harmful. And so that's a cool area. I would like to keep in touch if you want to keep in touch with us. We have experts here who can help, both in the Department of Chemical Engineering, Petroleum. We have interest in that area too.
Thank you so much. And we have a question and
Yes.
homework here from one person saying that the capture technology is key to the whole CCUS concept. Can we explore the possibility of making them locally? Can we answer that now, or it will be our homework until our next webinar? Thank you.
Yeah, hello. Hello.
Yes,
Yeah,
you can
hello.
speak up.
Yes, it's possible. Like one of the presidential aspects is possible. Yeah, the key is the whole thing is that if you explore at times what you are thinking, the test of materials and others, as we do more studies and more research, and then like Dr. Yen is saying, more materials will come into place. You see, those times who think about how people thought about lithium. You see, we knew batteries to be what lead, acid. Then later on, we have other chemicals, the alkaline materials came in, and now we have the lithium. So the key is that now start doing more research, get the universities, the students involved, experiments, and as they do, more materials will come in. Do you see? So that we are not limited to existing ones that are more expensive. Even now, some years, but some materials we never thought of, particularly to produce other materials, now coming in. This is like the diamond battery, nuclear batteries that now just recently we have mentioned on the air. This is, so the key thing is the research to pick this up. This is perhaps the CS also established a unit for such. Then the universities, the various departments, the engineering, the physics, do you see, and then also look at it. Yeah, that's what I would say for now. So it shouldn't be restricted now, limited by the existing materials. Thank you.
Thank you. Indeed, it is possible. It is possible.
Can I have 1 minute just to make a quick something
Yes,
across,
please.
Kwesi?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Go.
So since we are talking about university community, I would like to just send this information across that people are thinking some courses are becoming irrelevant. Maybe the engineering side, because energy transition has come, the engineering side is, chemical, petroleum, whatever. Those courses are here to stay. However, just make yourself marketable. There is fast changing, and even in that mainstream hydrocarbon, as we are talking about, is fast changing, So you just, especially in the job market, if you're a petrochemical engineer or whatever, chemical or mechanical, and I think Dr. Yen already mentioned the job opportunities, they are still there. They are huge. So don't think your course is useless. No. Or, it has outlived its importance in this era of energy transition. No way at all. Hydrocarbon will still be with us for the foreseeable future. However, just make yourself marketable, and I think you'll be fine. You become very, very relevant within the industry. And then the last thing I want to say is that, see, CCUS and the conventional production of a sort, they can't affect each other in terms of job opportunities at all. It's almost like a new industry that is coming alongside the conventional hydrocarbon. So if anything at all, is going to create further more opportunities for all other disciplines who can work in the conventional oil and gas field. They can equally find their uses in CCUS. So the important thing is that don't stay in touch with technology and know what is going on, and tune your research areas to match those ones. And I can tell you, we have a huge funding available for these breakout technologies that will make a lot of this things very competitive and cheaper. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Doc. I think Dr. Essandoh, do you want to say something?
The world is not saying all day, and the UN, FCC, they will not say zero carbon dioxide emissions. We say what? Net zero. Net zero means now if you produce the what they call the emission-based ones like fossil fuels, and then you use the renewables, the forestation, others to balance it, you want to achieve net zero. So, like Dr. Sulemana said, there's never going to be anything like zero CO2 or zero fossil fuel. It's going to be there. Or that maybe the ratio will change, but then, like I keep saying, there will be another purpose for the very CO2. Now, you can't see the importance of CO2 for the industrial application very little or relatively little. But over time, we're also researching for the uses of CO2. So don't throw away, don't give up. As you do research the lab, something good will come. Hey, we can be useful for this thing. We can even use it for food. We can use this and that. That's how discoveries and inventions are made. You see, but excuse me, on this content, we are deceived to look narrowly on things. You see, but let's open our minds and all those things and look at more opportunities, whatever we are using. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Doc, for your final remarks to us.
All right, so I'm coming in also with my final remarks, if that is fine, Kwesi.
Please go on, sir.
Okay. This topic definitely is very interesting. It is one that we are all very passionate about, and the interest in the country is quite high. So in the next semester, we are going to organize quite a few seminars around this, workshops around this. I am proposing that we look at one on campus here. We will look at one probably in other campuses around. And now I want to propose this to CCG. We can bring together experts to discuss it, and we'll bring stakeholders together as well. Let's try to keep the conversation going. But for young people, your goal is to understand what this technology is all about. Look at the entire value chain. Identify a section of the value chain where you will fit in and build the skills that is required to fit in there, and just wait. The opportunities are going to come, whether in this country or wherever the need may be. It's an international industry, so you're not limited to Ghana alone. There's future here, but the future globally is also very bright. And as a country, we have the potential. We just need to assess it and know exactly what we have, and also match it to our needs to see if this is something that we want to invest in, or it is something that will fit into our energy transition in future. Our immediate need will be a regulatory framework. First, we need to find out how to regulate CCUS. Although we don't have a CCUS industry currently operating in the country, but it will be good for us to have a framework for regulation, and that should be clearly spelled out. Many countries have done it, so we can get some inspiration from other countries to develop one. Then once we have that, we can focus on assessing our facilities and looking at source to sink matching. Then we move on from there, step by step. And I think the future will look very bright for all of us. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak in this webinar. I'm so grateful.
Thank you so much to all our speakers for their thought-provoking presentations, and to everyone in the audience for your active participation. In fact, your engagement and questions have made this webinar a meaningful and enriched experience for all of us. So as we wrap up, I'd like to remind you to join our SIGs and continue the conversation from today's webinar. I've reshared the link in the chat for you to join your preferred SIGs. We also want to encourage everyone to follow the Brew Hammond Energy Centre on our social media platforms on LinkedIn, X, and Facebook to stay updated on upcoming events and activities. We also want to use at this point, acknowledge our Centre Director who has been with us all afternoon, Professor David Atokwansa, our CCG National Coordinators, Professor Francis Kemanso and Professor Joseph Akuwa, and the Inclusive Net Zero Emission SIG Coordinators and members. We also want to acknowledge the Seminars and Workshops Committee, which is chaired by Dr. Eliel Kilson, for putting this together, and the Media and Communications Committee, which is also chaired by Dr. Jonathan Kwei, for helping organize today's webinar. Thank you once again for being here today and for your commitment to advancing sustainable energy solutions. Think together, we can create a more sustainable and equitable future. Have a great day. Goodbye.
Thank you, coordinator, also for doing a good job.
Sure.
Bye.
Bye.